Search for Huru. Thank you for joining us. Let's get some more people into the chat room. I have the brother Jamal Lee with us on today. And today's topic, let me get this set. I'm using this new app, you guys, so you got to kind of be patient with me. But today's topic, we're going to be speaking on, ADOS, pan-African unity, the Tariq Nasheed situation, and also, SamuelLJackson just received his citizenship in whatchamacallit, in Gabon. So we're gonna talk about that. So I kind of want to start off with the SamuelLJackson situation first. Jamal, go ahead and introduce yourself. And plus, I'm testing this out, so I want to see if they can see you when you start talking. But go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, how you guys doing? I'm Jamal Lee. I am the founder and director of African Unity Initiative. We are a community and economic development nonprofit focused on African unity through real, tangible, real touchable ways, not just pie in the sky, I hope, or ideologue methods of African unity or pan-Africanism. We bring pan-Africanism to a way that you can actually see it happening, to a tangible way.
Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it. And guys, please bear with us again. They got rid of Google Hangouts, if you guys don't know. So we're using StreamYard. So I'm just trying to try to tweak this a little bit. So please bear with me during the tweaking. So yeah, but I want to start off with the SamuelLJackson situation. Now, this is the thing. Let me say this. The whole citizenship issue in regards to Africa. Number one, the main thing is you guys have to go to the continent. It's going to be done over there. Okay? Like a lot of people. Can you guys see me? No, Mo, you say you can't see me. Press 1 if you can see me. But anyways, the whole thing is a lot of people are under the impression that everything's going to be done here in America. And then you have a lot of people, just from talking to people, who think for some reason that, they're the only way them going to Africa is contingent on them getting citizenship. Shout out to Gregory Wyatt for the super chat. Shout out, I'll see, brother Gregory. I'll see you next week. I'm looking forward to it. That's the impression I'm getting. That's the messages I'm getting. Like, hey, Dynast man, how can I get my citizenship? I want my citizenship. Or have you visited the country yet? I think the brother dropped off. Brother, we need you to come back on. But anyways, so a lot of people are under this impression that getting your citizenship is like, okay, if I'm not gonna go if I don't know if I'm gonna get my citizenship or not. Well, you don't go. Don't go. Don't go. If you feel as if you going to Africa is contingent on you getting your citizenship, then don't go. Don't go. The brother dropped off. Let me get him hop back on. So that's I just wanted to speak on that. So SamuelLJackson, who traced his roots back to Gabon, they gave him a citizenship today. Now a lot of people are saying, well, it's because of who he is. He's famous. He's that. He's the other. Okay, I understand. But there are a lot of people who aren't famous, okay, who are gaining and getting their citizenship. So yeah. So again, guys, go visit first. Again, I got people saying, I want my citizenship. Okay. Have you been to Africa? No. Have you been to any country? No. Do you even have an American passport? No. Then, like, what do you want? Like, what are you really trying to, all right, Jamal, the brother Jamal's back on. Hold on. Yeah.
Yeah, I got knocked off. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. So, but we got you back on now. So. Thank you, brother. But
Okay,
yeah,
great.
so the brother of Samuel Jackson discovered that his roots are from Gabon. So he visited, and they surprised him with his citizenship. So, blessings to that brother.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I love to hear stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then also too, I don't know. Oh, go ahead if you want to go ahead and build on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I love to hear that because it takes away that narrative that Africans don't appreciate African Americans who are searching for their history. It also takes away the narrative that African Americans aren't interested in our roots. We need to be able to take control of these narratives that we are so disconnected from one another. There are those of us who search out that connection, and we are making those connections sometimes on a small level. Sometimes it may be a celebrity, but these things are happening in organizations, like yours, like the work that I'm doing. And so I'm glad that it has happened on a pop level so that it can get more exposure. And so, it can be a topic of discussion.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's happening on I would say, grassroots level.
Right.
It might not be happening on a large scale, but it's definitely happening on a grassroots level, which leads me to another topic. So last year, a couple of years ago, Samuel Jackson was criticizing how was upset that Black British actors of African descent were getting roles here in America.
Yeah.
Do you think it's kind of hypocritical now that he's now a citizen of Africa, or and I've had my complaints as well at times, depending on what it is, in regards to the continent. As far as the continent, I would say as a whole, their lack of engagement with the African American diaspora, I've criticized, I've been critical on that too. But I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Now Samuel Jackson has gotten his citizenship in Gabon, and him being
So
upset in regards to Black African British actors getting roles, American roles.
and I definitely remember that conversation because he was specifically, it came out around the time of Get Out, and Daniel Kaluuya playing the African American role in Get Out, and kind of challenging whether he had the same perspective of interracial dating as we had here. So it was an interesting dialogue, and I consider myself somebody who likes to be a movie insider and know what's going on in Hollywood for whatever reason. And what I've seen is there is a trend of, and it's not just with Black actors either, there's a trend to hire British actors because they feel like they've been more classically trained in the arts.
Yeah, man,
theater.
That's all BS.
And so there's a trend in Hollywood that has happened where they will go after a British so-called classically trained actor over an American. And so it was interesting when Samuel L. brought that up, because I was like, we need to not focus so much on where we're coming from specifically in the diaspora, but if a Black man is playing a Black role, let's support it and get as much Black influence and exposure of our stories out as much as we can, because at the same time, the Black Panther, both of those, Michael B. Jordan and the brother Chadwick Boseman, are both African American, and they played people who were originally from the continent. And what I loved about that movie is it had people in the diaspora in all of those roles. I don't know if it's so much hypocritical. It may be just growth. It may be, and we don't know how his thoughts have changed since he made those comments. And I know sometimes I may have heard a snippet of the comments, and out of an entire interview, that is the phrase, or that's the sentence, or that's the line that was blown up. And it may have been blown out of proportion. It may have created a dialogue where we weren't able to get the follow-up from Samuel L. Jackson of his clarification, or if there was a paragraph after or a line of questioning after he made that statement that kind of clarified things within that interview itself. So sometimes it may be, if he did feel that way, the way we believe he was interpreted to mean that statement, maybe he has grown since then, since finding his ancestry. Maybe it has opened up a new part of himself, or maybe we just didn't know the whole story from the beginning. So those are my thoughts on that.
Guys, let's make sure you hit that like button. We have almost 300 people watching. Make sure you hit that like button as you come into the chat room. Also, too, well, this is where I stand on it. Well, just ADOS in general.
Right.
By definition, and I don't want to get into semantics in regards to, they're calling themselves slaves, this, that, and other. Just from what we've been given. By definition, right. I'm technically ADOS. I believe that there is a debt owed to the descendants of enslaved Africans from the U.S. government.
Right.
Now, I think the issue is that I have now. Should there be special, I would say, set-asides or programs for ADOS? I agree, but here's the problem. This is the problem. It's just who's gonna overlook that? Who's gonna control the money? If the money goes into a specific pot, because as we know, I don't trust people. I'm not that trustworthy with people as far as overseeing the money. Especially if it comes to government, because I don't think the money will be distributed into the proper way. If it comes to certain set-asides and programs for ADOS. So my thing is just give me my check and let me do what I do. Now, I think that the issues that I'm having now with ADOS is like ADOS wants to be gatekeepers between African or just Black immigrants in general and jobs being provided by white corporate-owned zaddy.
Right.
I gotta no. Like, I understand how we built the country and I understand how we made it possible for immigrants to come over, but I'm not about to fight my African brother and sister over jobs that white corporations are offering. And I think, and that to me is just corny and lame. And so when we get into these arguments in regards to why is, this African woman playing Harriet Tubman? Why, with SamuelLJackson, why are these British actors playing these, getting these Black American roles? But at the end of the day, who's cutting the check? And usually the people who are cutting the check are non-ADOS. So if ADOS is this upset, how about we start our own studios? We can hire who we want to. We take control of our destiny. And then we move in that direction. But trying to be the gatekeeper between, immigrants and white zaddy, that to me is lame and bogus and corny. That's just, I can't support that. And that I'm starting to hear a lot of that, and that's just corny.
So when I was first introduced to ADOS, I was very interested. And I know you said you didn't want to get down into the semantics, but even the name was a problem with me. And it just seemed like some of the people who were starting it, I believe that words have power. And when we know and when we choose the words that we use in discourse, it kind of breeds where we're going to go with it. So when you say American descendants of slaves, and I love when you came back and you said enslaved Africans. Yeah, the descendants of enslaved Africans within the context of the United States, we are technically owed. There is a debt to be paid from the United States government to those of us who were enslaved by the United States government. There is a debt owed to those of us by the British government who were enslaved in Jamaica, who were enslaved in the other British colonies. There's a debt owed to Haitians by the French government, to Martinique by the French government. There are so many descendants of enslaved Africans throughout the Western Hemisphere that instead of creating these extra distinctions where we are already distinguishing ourselves based as Black people based on where we're from, We don't need another category on top of what already exists to further cause a rift between the disjointedness of blackness that already exists, to create another dialogue that's kind of unnecessary. And I get the merits of reparations. I understand the merits of wanting to change these political parties from just guaranteeing our vote as black people just because of our grandfathers may have voted in that party. We should not have party loyalty without them offering us anything. But I believe that some of the rhetoric and some of the ways that ADOS, some of the spokespeople are going about it, where they are insulting and attacking people of African descent that happen to not be born in the United States, I believe is childish. I believe it's divisive. And I really don't see the merit in that part of it, just the approach. Now, if we approached it like, okay, immigrants who are black in the United States, we who have been here, who were enslaved in this country, or our ancestors were enslaved in this country, we are seeking reparations from this country.
Right.
Stand behind us, stand with us. We need this now. And when it's Jamaica's turn, we will stand behind the African descendants in Jamaica and demand from Britain, where we won't seek a part of that, but we will stand behind you and fully support you. But if we, while we're advocating for ourselves, because technically by the definition, I would qualify as ADOS as well. Right, but if we are shunning and disrespecting people, they aren't going to want to stand with us. And how long is this alliance or this distinction going to last? Once we get reparations, does ADOS go away and we just go back to being black? Are the rest of our brothers and sisters not going to remember the rhetoric that we were using? Because I've heard some of the rhetoric, and I don't want to call anybody out by name because I don't want to be negative, but I've heard one of the self-proclaimed founders of ADOS said that African immigrants weren't a part of the freedom struggle. Caribbean immigrants, black immigrants weren't a part of it. Where Kwame Ture, if you know his history, is from Trinidad. Marcus Garvey is a Jamaican. These people came here to help all black people. It was just about our advancement. It wasn't about creating a distinction between what blackness is based on the region that the oppressors thought to drop you off. That really doesn't make any functional sense to me. Like, what's the long goal? So let's say the end goal is to get these programs in place. Once the programs are in place and they are specifically some kind of way, we test everybody's DNA and we can functionally, let's say best case scenario, everything works out perfectly for the end results that ADOS are looking for, the program ADOS. These programs, nobody can get access to them but black people born in the United States, or black people who have descendants of people who were enslaved in the United States. We're the only way we can find out a way to get only us access to those programs. Now what's next? What's the next step? Do we then go back to talking about unity among all black people? Do we then appreciate our brothers and sisters who have come here and have fought alongside us? Yes. Have I had interactions with black immigrants who have negative thoughts about African Americans? Sure. Have I had interactions with African Americans who have negative thoughts about people from the continent, or people from the Caribbean islands, or Afro-Latinos? Sure, because we are all given miseducation about each other, which is already intentionally there to keep us separated from one another. And so now we're going to do it for them. We're essentially doing their job for them, creating more isolation within black people, which is very opposite of unity. And
I saw a video when I was first hearing about ADOS, and it was like Pan-Africanism versus ADOS. And I was like, now, if the mayors of ADOS are about making sure that we accept our full rights in the constituency, we make sure that these parties don't take the black vote for granted, we make sure that our agenda is heard when they're giving these campaign speeches, when they're having these debates. If that's the agenda, why does it need to be juxtaposed to Pan-Africanism? I don't see where those things are in conflict with one another if you base it based on the agreeable principles that both of us agreed upon, that the merit of people being owed a debt based on free work for centuries. Yes, we can all acknowledge that that's something that needs to be acknowledged, and it needs to be there's a debt that needs to be paid. But the way we go about addressing that concern is very important.
Absolutely, guys. Make sure you hit that like button when you come to the chat room. We have 400 people watching. Make sure you hit that like button, and and shout out to everybody who super chatted. And guys, please forgive me. Okay, here we go. Bam. The brother, I think it was, here we go. Icon Pride said, yeah, like it doesn't make sense for black people to be fighting over jobs provided by white people. I've never been down with that. It makes absolutely no sense. And I see a lot of that going on. And then when you bring that up, a lot of people in ADOS, they got every excuse in the book why it's permissible. I'm like, no, fighting other Africans, other black people for jobs provided by white corporate America, white-owned corporate America, I can't co-sign on that, man. That's right. Pathetic, actually. Like it
doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. We could be talking about economic independence, when we could be talking about entrepreneurship, when we could be talking about how do we recreate a Black Wall Street, and how do you even distinguish? America has a very complicated history. Enslavement has a very complicated history. Even the merits of the whole ADOS idea can be broken down when we trace where people were coming from, where people were sold to and from during the time of enslavement. Just those details alone can break down an argument. And then you bring up the topic of fighting over jobs for other people when we could be working together to make sure that we have the sources to give these businesses loans, Black-owned businesses, the business loan and the capital, to not just create a solopreneur type business where it's just one person running the business, but to create businesses that can actually impact the economy, that can actually impact the unemployment rate, where we can start hiring people, where we can put ourselves in full-fledged Black-owned law firms, full-fledged Black-owned functioning banks that can actually make an impact in the community. We need to start supporting our own and stop looking outward, because some of the people are now attacking Angela Rye, they're attacking Joy Reid, they're attacking these people, and they'll pick a name and they'll find out where the person's from. They'll find a problem with something that they've said once, and then they'll draw a generalization based on that person that they may have a dislike for, and just generalize everybody who fits into that category. That's unfair. It's not a very intellectual way to go about things, and it's not a way to garner respect. Who are we talking to? Who is listening to this discussion? Is it Black people, or are you disguising it as a Black movement and you are really kind of talking to white people? Are you accommodating and trying to present yourself as acceptable to them by separating yourselves from other Black people? I just don't see the end goal. Where does it go? Where does this lead? Where's your end goal? Because the end goal of Pan-Africanism is very clear. I want people in Jamaica and people from Jamaica to be successful and to advance as Black people. I want people in Haiti and people from Haiti to advance. I want the continent of Africa to advance. I want Black people in America to advance, and I want us all to work together and support each other in our efforts while we do it. There is no end of the line in that goal. That is a functional thing that is going to be consistent throughout this generation. It can carry on into the next generation. Where does ADOS end? What's the goal, and how is it sustainable?
Well, I will say this now. You mentioned Angela Rye and Joy Reid. You know, corporate black media or old black media, they deserve what they got coming for them. So, you know, Angela Rye, Joy Reid, Roland Martin, you know, they're all pawns. So, you know,
True.
whatever, you know. So
True.
I'm not defending them.
I'm not coming to their defense per se, but what I'm saying is I've heard this happen where you pick out Joy Reid, you find out that she's an immigrant, you then turn that on its head and says that, you see, that's an example of what happens when one of these black immigrants takes a job that could have been filled by a black American. They don't represent us. And then they kind of they pervert the everybody who fits into that category into being of the mindset of this one person that they have a disagreement with. I don't agree with everything that comes out of, I don't believe, anybody's mouth. But there's a place and there's a way to create this dialogue. There's a way to even challenge the voices in black culture that is way more productive than insults and inflammatory comments that kind of just creates retweets or hits on YouTube. There's a way to go about this, because if we bash each other in public, kind of like when Dr. Umar Johnson and Tariq Nasheed were having their public battle, that was an embarrassment. That wasn't a productive conversation. That wasn't something that should have been blasted on social media. When we're intellectuals and we have disagreements, we should be able to have disagreements based on merit, understand where the other person is coming from, and we can either agree to continue to work together or agree to cut ties from each other. But everybody doesn't need to know. Sometimes we need to stay on code. Sometimes what's happening in the black house, if I have a disagreement with my brother, my neighbor doesn't need to know. When I go outside, my neighbor does not need to know that I have an issue with my brother. Now, when we get back in the house, we can figure out what the issue is between us and work that out amongst ourselves. But it does not need to be broadcast to everybody, because then people on the outside or people on the cusp of African consciousness or who want to be involved, and they say, oh, this is the leadership, they're doing immature acts such as this, or they're you know, all they can do is name call. This is how they air their grievances. Then I don't want to be associated with it at all.
Everyone who's super chatting, thank you so much for the super chats. If I'm missing, shout out to the brother, just super chatted, Theodore Williams, well spoken and through. Thank you. If I missed your super chat, I apologize. You know, I'm using this new format, so. And Baoni Fafu Malau Baoni, you know, I'm missing some of the super chats because of this new format. So please forgive me. I apologize. And hit the like button when you come. We have 415 people watching, so please hit the like button. Now, with that being said, brother Tariq Nasheed, okay, somebody keeps saying, Dinus, bring somebody on who I guess knows ADOS. I've had several people. In fact, you know what? Here in about 20 or 30 minutes, I'm gonna open the lines up. And if you want to come on, you're more than welcome to come on. But I've had several people come on to I guess explain ADOS. And again, I understand the history of our ancestors and the blood, sweat, and tears that we put in building this country and that we're owed. I understand that. But all this other stuff, like I want to be a gatekeeper between white corporate America and black immigrants. No, that's pathetic. And I'm starting to hear a lot of that, and that's pathetic. Just cut me my check and let me move on. Because at the end of the day, there can be no end game here in America for so-called ADOS. There is no end game. So yeah. But Tariq Nasheed is, I guess, was banned from the UK, the United Kingdom, or they won't allow him to travel there. Yeah. So that happened.
I didn't hear about that. And I'm pretty much in tune with. I try to stay up to date with everything that's going on. Did they come out this week or today?
It came out like this morning. I found out this morning. I guess it happened
Okay,
last
this morning. Okay, that's I just probably didn't come across any of the videos that
Hold
we're
on,
talking about.
Hey, I've invited Antonio on. I've invited Yvette Carnell on. So go ahead, brother. And they never responded. So well. All right, go ahead, Jamal.
So did they give in whatever article this was in? Did they give the merits of why it is, or we just know that it happened?
Basically, they feel as if he's going to be a problem. I guess because
Okay.
his rhetoric, which is BS. I mean, Farrakhan is banned from the UK, but Tariq Nasheed is nowhere like Farrakhan. So
yeah, Tariq Nasheed and Farrakhan. Okay, that's interesting. Well, I believe there's a problem, and when you can just ban somebody from an entire nation based on their rhetoric, but everywhere isn't.
Well, they're saying this is movie Hidden Colors 5 or 6, but it's not.
Hidden Colors 5. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, but I don't see the issue.
Yeah, even still,
Tariq has said some stuff that is like, come on, bro. Like Tariq tried to blame the HIV epidemic in Atlanta on African immigrants. It's like, Tariq, come on, bro. Like, really?
I didn't hear that either.
Yeah. It's just like, come on, man. You're talking out the side of your mouth now. Come on.
Yeah. After that public disagreement and the back and forth between he and Dr. Umar, I kind of unsubscribed directly to both of them, and I just I hear secondhand what's going on with them. If they say something that makes sense, then of course I'll co-sign that. But when people go off the rails, I just kind of stop following up with them. And so when he's saying things like that, I don't understand the merit of those types of statements. What does that do? How does that help? If we're in this for the advancement of our people, how do we advance each other by creating more division than what already exists? Him being banned from the UK, I just don't, based on some rhetoric that he said in a movie, I disagree with the banishment of a person from an entire nation. But at the same time, I just have no interest in visiting Europe that much to really have that hurt my heart that much.
Let me say this. Let me if I can interject. I have a lot of. In fact, I have a sister in right now who I was showing around today in Atlanta. She just flew in from the UK. Like, I want to visit London and Paris, but if I'm not able to, like, I'm not gonna be like heartbroken.
Right. It's not gonna break my heart.
Yeah,
but I've had an opportunity to go to Paris. And I just met a young lady today as well from the UK. It may even be the same person here in Atlanta. And she was saying that she was going back today. But I know there are those of us, there's an African diaspora in Europe, and I want to work with those people. I'm just saying, if I was banned from there, it wouldn't break my heart. So I disagree with the banishment. It's not something that's going to be at the top of my protest list. I'm not about to create any type of form and try to ask for signatures for people to sign off to reverse that. But if one was created, I might sign it just as a sign of support, as a sign of my not supporting the banishment. And as it goes to with Tariq Nasheed, he's been known to, be, I don't know, he said some questionable things in the past. And so I just don't follow him directly. So some of the news may come to me a little late, and I may not be on the forefront of everything that's going on with him lately. If I disagree with people, rather than getting on my platform or anything that I have to discredit them, I just don't mention it. It goes so not talking about things goes a long way. Not giving it light goes a long way. It can help. It can be more helpful than bringing light to something that you disagree with, and it just causes more confusion and more chaos, which is what we don't need as a people. And yeah, and for the people who were saying bring some ADOS people on, I've had plenty of conversations with people who support ADOS, and I love to engage with people in an intellectual conversation where we may come to a place where we believe that they disagree with each other, and I gladly concede points. If you make a good point, I will say that is a good point. I understand the merit of you doing this, but explain to me where ADOS has to be juxtaposed to pan-Africanism or unity. Why does it has to be one or the other? Why does it have to be the way of Du Bois or the way of Booker T. Washington? Why does it have to be the way of Dr. King or the way of Malcolm X? There is a way for us to work together, doing different methods, going about things a little bit differently, and collaborating with each other. That way, we know that we don't overlap. This brother has his niche, but that doesn't mean that we can't work together. He may feel a gap that I'm not filling in the work that I'm doing. I may feel a gap or reach an audience that he's not doing, but by us working together, he gains access to my audience and the work that I'm doing, and gets to work alongside it and incorporate it into the work that he's doing, and vice versa. It doesn't need to be juxtaposition unless your goal is to do the opposite of the advancement of Black people. I don't see why there can't be collaboration. I don't see why it needs to come down to public disagreements and, loud. When it has to turn into insults, that's where I tune out. I can't listen to you anymore. When you get back to speaking in an intellectual way, when you can state your point and you can articulate yourself well, I will understand what you're saying. I don't have to agree with you. When a Muslim and a Christian speaks to each other, I don't expect those two people to walk away from the conversation agreeing with one another. But if they walk away with better understanding of why the other person thinks the way that they do or believes the way that they do, then they could possibly have a relationship with one another. They can partner with one another. They can do work together. That's where we need to be, where I can, on a principle, disagree with the way that you're doing with something, or just not think that I can do it that way. I do it this way, but we are going toward the same goal, then I can work with you. And we find the areas where we can actually work together on the same thing. And then if you're doing something a different way, I will tell people about what you're doing and tell them, hey, you may want to do it this way. There's another brother, there's another sister, there's another organization that is more focused on agriculture. There's another organization that's more focused on Black economics. There's another organization that's focused on environmental studies in the Black community or in Black neighborhoods. We all have specialties. We all have works that we're doing specifically. And just because you're not doing the exact same thing that I'm doing, or you're not doing it the exact same way that I'm doing it, I don't need to bash you. And if you're doing something that I just completely disagree with, I don't have to mention you at all unless you're doing direct harm to people, and I want to warn people to stay away from it because it may be dangerous.
Let me say this. Somebody in the chat room called Tariq a scam artist. No, he's not a scam artist. Again, I've bought products from Tariq. I've bought products from Tariq. He's given me my product. So, but again, the whole AIDS and African situation, I mean, the whole, blaming African immigrants for the AIDS and HIV situation in Atlanta, that was some bullshit. And he just said that shit out the side of his mouth. Some reckless, just talking reckless. We know why the HIV rate is the way it is here in Atlanta. We know why. And it has
the CDC is here in Atlanta. Let's not play. Well,
that too, but there's another reason why is high enough. It's another reason why. And it has nothing to do with no African immigrants. So again, he was just, I mean, talking out of the side of his, talking reckless out of the side of his mouth. That's what that was.
Right. And to the Yoruba brother in the super chat, Bawo ni se alafia ni.
Say Alafani. Say well dada. Let's see here. Guys, make sure you hit that like button. We have 444 people in the chat room. Please hit that like button. Javen Bullets, if you want to come on, shoot me an email. I'm going to put my email in the chat room. If you want to come on, shoot me an email and email me, and I will send you the link. So Javen Bullets, if you want to come on, send me an email. It's in the chat room, and I'll send you a link, and you can come on. All right, so let's shift it now to Pan-African unity and how Pan-Africanism looks in the I guess 21st century.
Right. So for me, I've heard some people who, so I had a conversation with somebody who didn't understand Pan-Africanism. They thought it was trying to force everybody of African descent to kind of amalgamate to this one identity of what an African is, of this one idea of Africa. And I was saying, I haven't really read anything that is advocating for that all the way back to the beginning. And if people are talking about that, that is not realistic. So I'll talk about the way that I see it happening. It has to happen in a tangible way. It has to happen in a way that kind of takes it out of the books, kind of takes it out of the universities, off of the research, and really talks to the people. So when I'm talking to people in the work that I do, I want you to be your authentic. If you're Black from Atlanta, I want you to be Black from Atlanta and understand what that means. Know the history of what your people have done in that place, in that region. If you are a Haitian, I want you to know and bring to this unification what the history of Haiti and how that has built the Black culture there in Haiti. The same thing with the people who still live on the continent. The same thing with our Black brothers and sisters in Latin America and in Europe. Bring us the mixture of Blackness. It's not going to be monolithic. There is no one way to be Black, but there are similarities that are there when you are around Black people long enough. There are certain African retentions that are in our cultures that get explored now based on the region or where you ended up, whether you voluntarily migrated or you were a part of the Ma'afa, the involuntary dispersion through the transatlantic slave trade. Wherever we ended up, there are certain things that we do similar. And, you know, what I do is build on the concentration of our similarities instead of building unity based on the basis of our common struggle. We acknowledge that we as Black people are struggling under a white supremacist society here in America and a scope that has been accepted globally of people bleaching their skins, no matter where they come from, people straightening their hair, you know, so on and so forth, white standards of beauty, you know, white privilege, being lighter skin, being given advantages. We understand that, but we need to build our unification based around our commonalities. Focus it on us. Don't focus it on the outside influence or the outside actions of other people. I tell people I fight for Black people. I don't fight against anybody else. I'm not fighting against white supremacy. I'm not fighting against white people. I'm not fighting against oppression. I'm fighting for the advancement of Black people. And through fighting for the advancement of Black people, my fight is going to attack all of those things, but it's a more personal journey. It's more about building us up than focusing so much on them to tear them down that we never build anything for ourselves. We never build each other because we're so focused on what's happening or what other people are doing to us or blaming somebody else for the situation that we're in, we never take the responsibility to do anything ourselves about it. So in the work that I do, I create African unity through, I work in Atlanta. I have communities I work with in Haiti. I have a community I work with in Sierra Leone, in Guinea, in Mali, and in Uganda. These are the places where I've done actual work and I've made actual connections on the ground, had meetings, created projects. So in these communities, when I'm in Atlanta, I'm talking to Black people in Atlanta about the community where they live and how we develop that and how we build relationships with the people who live in that community and how we unify on that level to make it personal for them. The same thing I do when I'm in Haiti, the same thing in Sierra Leone, so on and so forth. So we start off on the micro level of building up that specific community. Then once that community has shown that, okay, we're together, we are doing work on a consistent basis. We are, as an organization, creating the resources to make sure that the projects that they're working on are sustainable. Then once they are comfortable with where they are and they realize that they don't have to move to another part of town or to another country to get things done, then we start connecting the communities in Atlanta to the community in Haiti, to the communities in Sierra Leone, Guinea, Mali, Uganda. Then we are creating a network of people, of communities who are doing work for themselves. And now they're connected to each other. They get to know each other socially. They get to know how people are thinking, what projects people are working on. They get to exchange ideas. They get to exchange certain things in the culture that may, oh, you guys do this way, we do it a little bit different, but I see a similarity in there. They get to engage with one another. It has to be tangible. There has to be something that people can touch, that people can see, other than just saying, let's all acknowledge our African ancestry. How do we do that? First, realize what you can do for yourself in your community. Build that up. Stop looking outside to, I need to get from here to move to Buckhead. I can't be successful on the south side of town, or I can't be successful on the west side. I need to get to that neighborhood. When I make it there, that's my measure of success. If you're in Africa, I need to make it to the United States, and that's your measure of success. We need to measure our success based on what we've done in our own communities and build up that capacity. And then we can work together once we have those uniform communities of where we come from. Now we have a background of, okay, these are the things that the groups of Black people who unified in Atlanta, this is how they are working. These are the projects they've agreed to work on. These are the priorities that they have listed. This is the agenda of the people. This is Black people in Houston. This is their agenda. This is LA. This is Harlem. This is Brooklyn. This is Cap-Haïtien. This is Bo, Sierra Leone. This is Conakry. This is what people are doing in this region. Now, as an African American, I can look and see, okay, what's going on here? I want more information about this place. You have an actual community that you tap into, not just a book, but actual people that you can speak with, people that you can communicate with, socialize with, get to know on a personal level, and then you can start to engage with each other on so many different things. This is how I am going about doing it. And I support anybody who's doing it on a functional level that may do it a little bit differently. But I think whatever it is, whatever approach you have to create Pan-Africanism, it has to be more than just a lofty idea. It can't be idealism. It has to be tangible. It has to be something that somebody who hasn't had the opportunity to study it in school can relate to. It has to be able to relate to people's lives. We have so many distractions. I'm holding one right now to be on this call. This phone that's in my hand can be a tool to learn more, or it can be a tool to keep me ignorant. We, as the people who are trying to get our people to wake up and stay woke and,
hold on, I gotta cut you off. Hold on. Blazing Hot 99. Susan is coming to Nigeria with us next week. So yes, she has a passport. All right, go ahead.
Okay, no problem. But while we are in a position to want to get people engaged, We have to make it engaging for them. We have to make it interesting. We have to see what's popular, what's getting the clicks, what's getting most people interested. It doesn't mean water down the message. It just means give people the message in a way that they can receive it. And that may look different for different people. And that's why we need different organizations. That's why we need a variety of ideas, because what I'm doing may not resonate with everybody. What you're doing may resonate with somebody that I lose. And so having you there, they can get caught by your net, by your safety net. That's why we need each other. That's why these different organizations need to start collaborating with one another, building on the audience and the efforts that we are all building individually, and then do more activities together, have conversations which are happening, and I see it happening more. And that's what gives me the encouragement. I see more organizations that aren't about, is my name at the top of the flyer? Is my logo first? Am I getting the shout out? Am I getting my credit? I don't care about the credit. Is the work getting done? Did the message reach somebody that did not know? All right, then we did our job. Let's move on to the next person, because there's going to be somebody who finds me that I did not give my business card to or never met me in real life. But by a referral of somebody else, or somebody else saying, or them seeing my business card on the ground, or whatever it is, them doing a web search, I don't have to worry about credit or whether. I just have to worry about, is the message getting there? Can people tell that the work that I'm doing is for the right reason? Do they understand that my heart is in the service that I'm giving? Then I'll get people, and people will support the work that we're doing, and I'll support the work that other people are doing. This is how we build functional unity. This is how we make it sustainable. This is how we make sure that the UNIA doesn't die after 1970, 1940, 1930. This is how we make sure that an organization that starts today in 2019 can be relevant in the year 2056. This is how we make sure that we stay sustainable, that we work together, we collaborate, we acknowledge everybody's strengths, we put people in their position of strength, we empower people. Instead of wanting more followers, we need to want to be able to engage. What is your leadership quality? Person who's listening to me right now, what do you have to bring? What ideas do you have? I want to hear them. How can we incorporate your idea into what we're already doing? How can we use the resources that we have access to bring to life what you want to do? You become a leader, so that when they assassinate Dr. King, when they assassinate Malcolm X, when they deport Marcus Garvey, the work doesn't end because it's not centralized around one key figure. They won't know who to attack because we're all leading in our own right. They don't know who the centralized leader is because we've decentralized our operations. There's no one person to kill. There's no one person to discredit. There's no one person to buy out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me read this comment real quick. This is from the brother Great Black Shark. Dynas isn't anti-ADOS. He's anti-African hate based on ignorance. Exactly. I am too. However, some continental Africans want to coddle their coons. Is that we don't coddle coons over here, and I won't allow anyone to coddle their coons. Exactly. We don't coddle coons. We're not doing that. Exactly.
Right.
Again, we are definitely have done it several times. I do it all the time. The Afri-Peons, the Afri-Coons. This is a non-Afri-Peon and Afri-Coon fly zone, so you will get clowned. But thank you, Great Black Shark. I'm not anti-ADOS. I'm anti just ignorance and militant integration, and let's be the gatekeepers between Black immigrants and white corporate jobs, which is pathetic. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, and I completely agree with that statement. I'm glad he articulated it in that way, because that's basically what we've both been saying. We're not the general on paper written narrative of the merits of why ADOS was started, I agree with. But when we start to create extra distinctions and divisions, I just don't think it's necessary to get the message across. We can say that Black people don't need to be loyal to a specific political party just because we always have. We can say that we need to be more engaged in the political process and actually make people respect our vote and make people earn it. Make that candidate on the national level, on the local level, on the community level, make that elected official earn that vote. And when we do get the person that we want elected, or we don't get the person we want elected, we need to understand our constituency beyond voting. Our constituency does not end when the election is over. When that elected official is in office, we can make sure that our agenda is heard. We can write letters. We can make phone calls. We can bombard that secretary until they say, I'm tired of hearing from these people. And it's not just one person calling. It's multiple people calling with the same agenda. Clearly they're organized. Clearly they know what they want. Now we have to address it.
Okay, everyone, thank you for joining us, guys. Make sure you hit that like button. Javen Bullets, if you're on your cell phone, I think you have to be on, brother, you're on Chrome on your cell phone, right? Using Chrome? Or what browser are you using on your cell phone? Jamal.
I'm using Chrome, yes, Chrome.
Yeah, so Javen Bullets, download Chrome. You got to use Chrome. I don't know which browser you're using on your cell phone. You got to use Chrome. Guys, make sure you hit that like button. We have about 440 people watching right now, so make sure you hit that like button. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead and continue. And you have an event coming up that you.
Right. So on Saturday, August 10th, in Decatur, Georgia, is going to be located at the downtown Decatur Library. That is 215 Sycamore Street, Decatur, Georgia. And the event is the African Diaspora Dialogue, and the subtitle is Black to Love. So I'll just go over what the African Diaspora Dialogue is. What we do at African Diaspora Dialogues, it's a panel-centered discussion where we have someone on the panel who's African American, somebody on the panel who is from the continent of Africa, somebody on the panel from the Caribbean, and somebody on the panel who's Afro-Latino. This upcoming Saturday, we have an Afro-Cuban, a brother FIFO from the YouTube channel Dead End Hip Hop. We have a sister Alice Thomas, who is from Kenya, who represents the organization Splendors of Africa that does amazing work. Please look them up. We have a sister Shantae Lene, who is doing amazing work with an African Unity tour.
Yeah, well, I'm on. Shantae was just on the show on.
I know. I saw the episode. Yeah, her and Ms. Rose. I've been working with both of them, and I also have brother Ross Kofi, who's a reggae artist and an activist in the Atlanta area, who's from Guyana, and he's doing a lot of great work in urban farming and teaching Black people about agriculture and growing our own food and sustaining ourselves in that way. And so those are our panelists upcoming for August 10th for the African Diaspora Dialogue. And so at this discussion, what we talk about are, we frame the panel on those 4 regions to give the audience an idea of what the African diaspora is, the regions that it's made up of. And I use those 4 regions specifically, and we look for Afro-Europeans and other people as well. But those 4 regions were the regions that were impacted the most by the transatlantic slave trade, our involuntary dispersal from Africa.
Again, say it again.
So that's African Americans, that is continental Africans, that's the Caribbean, and that's Latin America. So Afro-Latino. So, and we talk about our experiences as Black people in the places where we grew up. We get that perspective. We get our experiences of interacting with Black people from other regions and what those experiences are. We talk about and we address some of the myths that we have about one another that are fed to us from other people, from outside sources. We talk about why those things exist, why it is important for them to not give us access to information about one another, why we are in America only seeing images of Africa of poverty and hungry children. And when we watch National Geographic, we only see animals in Africa, and we don't see the representation of the different varied cultures and representation of what life is in Africa. We don't, in Africa, when I was living in Guinea, people didn't know anything about African American life. They didn't know anything about our history. They learned nothing about us in schools. And the same thing in Haiti, the same thing in Peru. The Black people in these places, when I lived there, I was pretty much giving them all the background that they had ever heard about African Americans on a deeper level than just Dr. Martin Luther King and some of the, Black history super friends that we always learn about during the month of February in school. And so we don't get that much exposure to one another in the African diaspora. That is a feeding ground for ignorance to be developed. That is a feeding ground for dissension and false narratives to be perpetuated. And so we break down those false narratives through dialogue, through the perspective of different people. And it's called a dialogue because the audience is as engaged as the panelists. The panelists serve as a framing of what the African diaspora is for people in the audience who may not know. But once the conversation is framed, now people in the audience are free to indulge and engage in the dialogue, because the perspectives of the audience is going to be much more varied than 4 people on the panel. We're going to have people from all over the diaspora in the audience with so many different perspectives that we can, go off into those topics. And so Black to Love is the theme of the diaspora dialogue we're having this Saturday. And when we talk about love, we're not so much talking about romantic love. We're talking about what it takes as a Black person to love yourself as a Black person, why that's important. We also talk about when it's time for us as Black people to engage and teach another Black person, what is our approach? Are we attacking that person? Are we insulting that person? Are we making that person feel stupid because they haven't read a book that we've read? Are we telling that person that they don't know anything because, and we know that we don't learn these things in school. We know that these things aren't in our curriculum. Are you making somebody who doesn't know, like you once didn't know, are we making that person feel bad? Or is our approach in love? Are we coming to that person and saying, hey, I was having a conversation the other day and I was like, we're doing the African diaspora dialogue. And they was like, I don't know what the diaspora is. So instead of making a funny face and making the person feel bad about themselves, I said, the diaspora is just the dispersion of people. Our diaspora was created mostly by the transatlantic slave trade when we were dropped off on different places in the Western Hemisphere and taken from Africa. So now we are African descendants living in other places. We have also created a voluntary diaspora of immigration where we've moved to Europe. Some people have moved to the United States voluntarily. Some people have moved to Asia. So there's a larger African diaspora, and we want to connect all of it, the involuntary and the voluntary, because I believe that wherever we are, we can recreate Africa. I believe in the Maroon thought process. I believe in the Quilombo thought process. I believe in the Palenque thought process of recreating our African culture, our African civilization, our African roots, wherever we ended up. Because realistically, we can't all move back to Africa. I believe that we all need to go visit and engage and feel it personally, but there are not enough resources for us all to move back to Africa. So we have to recreate Africa wherever we are, embrace where we are, embrace who we are. We don't, a lion born, put in a zoo is not an American lion. It's still from Africa. I don't care how long you've been in a place, you are still tied to your roots. We are still culture. There are still African retentions that we exist. And so we build upon those principles instead of building unity based on what I call short-term alliances. And I use the example of World War II, where you had the United States, Britain, you had France, you had Russia. They were all fighting on the same side of World War II, but only because they were fighting against a common enemy. That enemy was defeated, the alliance was no longer necessary. We don't want that for our people. We want for our alliance to be tied to something much deeper, so that, let's say, best case scenario, we get rid of the ideology of white supremacy. Then are we not wanting to be unified anymore? So we can't unify based on what's happening outside of ourselves. We have to unify based on fighting for our advancement. If that's the cause of the unification, then there is no point in time where it's no longer necessary for us to be unified, for us to be connected to each other. And so the dialogue runs like that. And so I hope that those of you in the Atlanta area will show up, show out. The starts at 1 p.m. It ends at 3 p.m. Most of the time we run over because people get engaged in the dialogue, but we're going to keep things flowing. You can get your tickets at www.africanunity.us. That is www.africanunity.us. And tickets are $10. But if you're listening to this program right now, I will give you the promo code. The promo code is UNITY. When you get to checkout, it will ask you for a promo code. The promo code is UNITY with a capital U, and your ticket will be $5.
So support the brother. Shout out to Ruri Trig Diallo. Let's just do the work our ancestors desired, global Pan-African unity. We have an opportunity to set the course of our people's future. This window will close soon. And everybody else who super chatted, if I did not read your super chat, I apologize. Again, I'm just, I'm getting familiar with this StreamYard, I think it's called, this new app. So again, thank you so much for the super chats. Brother Laz, I sent the link, and then Javen Bullets came on, but then he logged off. So I don't know. So brother Laz, you have the link. What we'll do, we'll wait a couple more minutes for you. If you don't hop on, then we'll go ahead and close out. But guys, make sure you hit that like button as well. If you're new, this is your first time watching, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. I would say this, brother Diallo might be from Guinea-Bissau. Diallo's a very Senegalese Guinea name, so brother Diallo might be from there. So guys, please hit that like button. Brother,
please hit the like button. Support this show. I appreciate everybody who has tuned in so far. All the super chats, all the comments. We love the engagement.
Okay, so we got our brother LAZ on. Go ahead, brother Laz.
Hi, I was just listening to what you guys were saying. I was really interested in what Jamal was saying earlier about, sorry if you can't hear me very clearly, I kind of have a cold right now.
You sound good.
We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I was listening to what Jamal was saying earlier about what you were saying earlier about African unity and everything like that on the continent and everything. The problem, or you guys were talking about 21st century pan-Africanism. The biggest issue that I see facing 21st century pan-Africanism is sort of like the ethnocentric mentality that a lot of Africans take. For example, in Rwanda during the genocide, you had people who spoke the same languages, people who were really the same people, killing each other because of what they deem to be different tribes and everything. So my question to you, Jamal, is, as a Pan-Africanist, what do you think is the best approach in kind of like, I'll just call it what it is. What do you think is the best approach in sort of destroying tribalism, which I think is as far as the African continent is concerned, is the biggest roadblock to Pan-Africanism.
Real quick, everybody's asking about the streaming platform I'm using. No, so I used to use Google Hangouts. YouTube discontinued Google Hangouts, so now I'm using another service called StreamYard that somebody put me on. So for everybody that was asking. All right, go ahead, brother. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. So to address tribalism, so I lived in West Africa in Guinea, and I actually was working with some people from Rwanda. And what I know of that Rwandan genocide is that there was a key element of a game that was being played with those people. There were colonizers that were giving resources, intentionally more resources, to one group of people than the other. And they created that division. That division was created from an outside force, not from the people themselves.
See,
Go ahead, respond.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off there. See, the problem I have is I feel that we as Africans usually tend to love to blame outsiders, like Europeans and everything.
Yeah,
and then we kind of,
yeah, I'm like you. I'm tired of the white man is Thanos. I'm just, I'm tired.
I feel like
everything. It's like,
I feel like Africans need to kind of take ownership of their own misdoings for their own downfalls. For example, in Kenya, every year there's an election in Kenya. There's always ethnic violence between the Bantus and Luo peoples of Kenya. So a lot of the tribalism in Africa, I feel like, is also African fueled. If that makes sense.
So I understand that, and I'm not trying to take away our part in anything that we are doing against one another. And however, I just like to get to the root of things to understand that the inciting incident that created these divisions, once people are given limited resources, the reaction to trauma, the reaction to certain things can go into a very awkward way. We can start doing things against one another. And we've spoken about some of those things on this call. So in tribalism in Africa, what I usually do anytime I go and talk to anybody about what it is that I do, it's about building relationships. It's about talking to people. It's about giving people exposure and awareness and kind of pulling the veil off of what the game that is being played. So in African political systems, so are we in agreement that the countries that exist and the borders that exist today were not created by Africans? They were mostly created at the Berlin Conference based on how Europe was going to divvy up what land they were going to colonize.
Facts. I 100% agree with you.
So they did that strategically, where they put, for example, the Yoruba. The Yoruba are split between Nigeria, Benin, and Togo. And all of it was just once one kingdom of Yoruba.
Yeah.
So they split that kingdom up into 3 different countries, as they are called today. 3 different colonies at that time. And so now that kingdom is not centralized anymore and is not as strong as it used to be. And now, not only is that kingdom not a sovereign entity anymore, it is now being forced to share power with the neighboring Igbo, with the neighboring Hausa, with the neighboring Fulani, who at one time, when they all had control of their own sovereign land and controlled their own borders, they were the rulers. And so they didn't have to worry about ethnic engagement. If they had a deal of trade with the Igbo, they could trade with the Igbo. If they went to war with the Igbo, they went to war with the Igbo. But whatever the relationship was, it was on their own terms. And now, in free post-colonial Nigeria, now you have one president. And it is believed by the other ethnicities that if this person or these people get in power, they're going to do for their people and not do for the rest of us. It's just a regular game of pitting people against each other and creating a system where there's not enough to go around for everybody, because it's not the natural order of how things were set up. So of course it's going to be an imbalance in how the political structure is functioning, because first of all, democracy is forced on these nations in order to do deals with certain Western nations to get certain things. And so even though I agree with both of you, I don't like blaming the white man for everything, and I don't like giving them too much credit. But at the same time, we can't only just criticize where we are right now without acknowledging how we got there. Now, are there keys to make it work from this point going forward? I just wanted to review how we got to the tribalism in the way that it functions now. Not saying that tribes didn't war with each other pre-colonial, but it wasn't in the way that it is now. And it wasn't because of so many lack of resources and not enough to go around for everybody. That is the case that Africa is in right now. And the resources come from Africa, but the Chinese and the Europeans come in and they take the resources, and the people don't benefit, and the economy of these nations aren't benefiting from the minerals and the things that are there. So we need to find a way to make sure that the people on the grassroots level get empowered. Because if all we do is kind of disseminate our work through the elected officials, we don't know if these elected officials have been bought. We don't know who they're working for. We don't know what their real.
All of them are bought.
Well, you know, Brother Jamal,
that makes it difficult to because most organizations come in and they work with these political leaders. They start from the top instead of the bottom. Now, if we start talking to people on the bottom and we start educating people on the grassroots level, and we say, yes, oh, your distinction or your disagreement with that person who speaks that other language, who does this other thing, or who identifies as this other ethnicity, is a way to keep you in a perpetual state of poverty, in a perpetual state of oppression. Get over that.
Yeah. To sort of personalize this, I mean, I'm Southern Sudanese, right?
Okay.
And our country right now is fucked up due to
right. Yeah.
Due to tribalism and everything like that. And I kind of feel like really there's two options here. I'm gonna go back to what you said earlier. You drew the Yoruba example of how like Yoruba was one kingdom, and then when the Europeans came, they basically divided amongst three different countries and everything, three newly formed countries, and right. The same situation can be seen across the entire continent. So I feel as though there's really only two options that we have. The first option could just be to erase all borders and just force everyone to integrate with each other. Mm-hmm. Or the other option would be to redraw borders that align with sort of like the ethnic distribution that each person, like, for example, there would be a country just for Yoruba people and a country just for Igbo people as well. What would you think would be the better solution?
I think we would have a more difficult time of erasing borders altogether. I think the second option would be the best, if we could have some type of conference where we could redo our own Berlin conference, the opposite of it, and restructure those borders to identify with our cultural borders, or even if we call it something else. But still, at the same time, beyond doing something on a bureaucratic and political level, people just need to be educated. Really, it's just about, I mean, we can say the same thing in the United States, and it doesn't have to be with Black people, with white people who are poor in the United States, and they constantly vote against their interests. The way that white people are convinced to vote against their own interests is because they're told that being white is enough to get you. And then they're given this carrot that they continuously chase, when the opportunity will never be open for all of them. But they keep it there so that they never align with all people of poverty. So long as white supremacy exists, there will never be a proletariat revolution that takes over any other aristocracy, because there's always going to be some division amongst the impoverished to keep them separated from one another. That's the end goal. It's just keeping access from power from people. It has nothing to do with color lines. It has nothing to do with any of those things. It's about, okay, we're going to keep these people out of power, but we're going to keep them in place because we're going to make it seem like at one time, if they're good enough, they may be able to crack and get access to this power, when really it will never be open for everybody. The aristocracy need to be taken over, but so long as your attention is on the person next to you and not the person who's actually stepping on you, then the person who's stepping on you is forever going to be in power. So they're going to make sure that people aren't educated enough to really see through the facade of I'm so different from you. And so I'm talking on a larger scale of unity across the entire African diaspora, but the same principles can be laid down within one nation on the continent of Africa with the various ethnic groups that exist. I lived in Guinea, West Africa, Guinea-Conakry, and there are 48 recognized languages in Guinea. That means that there are 48 groups that identify as some
there's
other
over 60 in South Sudan, like over 60.
And so that reality exists throughout the continent of Africa because Africans have always been a diverse group of people with these practices. Now, at the same time, once you educate those people, they understand that they don't have to always combat one another to get access to resources. There's a way to work together. It's just about how you approach people, how you educate people, and who you are allowing to be educated. Who are you allowing to gain access to economic ability and stability? So if you keep somebody economically hungry, you keep them educationally hungry. And most of the time when you don't know something, you don't even know that you don't know it. So you feel like, oh, I've grown up, I'm 40 years old, and I believe in what I believe in. My parents taught me this, my teachers taught me this. It's going to be difficult for that person to accept any new information because you're telling them that everything that they've learned their whole lives is a lie. You're telling them that their parents lied to them, or you're telling them that their parents weren't smart enough. The people that they trusted to give them their life values weren't that intelligent. Either way, there's going to be a cognitive dissonance. I'm going to reject the right information because it's too hard for me to accept. So I'm just going to find a way to continue believing the thing that I already believe, even though I know the information that you just gave me poked all types of holes in my belief system. That's the same thing with tribalism. Once you get to a certain age, it's going to be so difficult to convince people. But if we create programs and we continue doing the work that we're doing, we can give people, it has to be, it can't just be education. It can't just be economics. It has to be both, because the freer economically you are, the more open you are to listen to somebody, because now you have free time to listen. Because if you are poor, then you need to work just to eat. You need to work to live. You're not living to work. You need to work just to put food on the plate, and you don't have any time of leisure to do any outside thing other than just take care of your family or make sure that you survive the next day. So long as we're in survival mode, it's not going to be there. So in order to get people out of sole survivor mode, there needs to be economic stability, economic freedom. We need to be able to create jobs. We need to be able to create opportunities for people to start businesses. We need to think, how do we empower people economically and educate them on a cultural level at the same time? Because education isn't enough, because miseducation can be worse than non-education. I know some PhD, I know some people with PhDs in economics. I know some people with PhDs in psychology, PhDs in religion, but they know nothing about their African ancestry. They know nothing about their history. They know nothing that connects them to their culture, and they are just as bad. I mean, look at Ben Carson. I don't know what happened to him, but so educated, but so misguided at the same time. And so if you only do education, but you don't add that cultural relevance part in there, and you don't have the economic freedom, then it's not going to work. It has to be both. We have to be able to work. When I was talking about a niche, so what what Brother Dynast is doing and I'm doing, and a lot of the other organizations that I am starting to collaborate with, we're all attacking different things that are plaguing Black people, and we're all promoting the advancement of Black people. We're doing it in different ways.
I want to give a quick shout out to Dynast. You know, I mean, I started watching the channel probably at some point this year, and it's changed my views on a lot of things, and it's opened my eyes on a lot of things as well, and it's like really brought me closer to pan-Africanism and everything. So thank you for the content that you know you pour out on the daily, man.
Oh man, I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll echo that sentiment. Thanks for the work that you're doing. Thanks for the platform that you've created. Thank you for inviting me to be able to speak on this platform to this audience. Thank you for everybody who has engaged in the comment section. And thank you for you, Brother Laz, for jumping on and you know, bringing that personal perspective. That's why I do the dialogue that I do. That's why I do the work that I do, because I want those different perspectives. I want it to be out there. African Americans and people in the Caribbean, Afro-Latinos need to know the ins and outs of the political structure of what's going on the continent of Africa. We need to know the complications, the complexities, and how things function, so that maybe we can help, maybe we can be engaged, maybe we can, you know, just be a part of it, just being exposed to it, just knowing more about it, making us want to study, making us want to connect, reach out. And when we start doing that, we don't know what ideas. Somebody in the chat room may have a dynamic idea that can actually address and be a part of the solution of what we're talking about on the continent. But if we don't give those people a voice and a platform and resources to make those things happen, then we kill that dream.
Yeah, I mean, I thank you for answering my questions. I do have to leave right now, but I'll keep watching the stream, and thank you for taking time to answer.
No problem, brother. What we'll do, we'll go ahead and close out. Jamal, Brother Jamal, anything else you want to share in closing? And also, go ahead and shout out the event as well one more time before we close out.
And that's what I was going to do. I would like for everybody in the Atlanta area to please try your best to make it out to the African Diaspora Dialogue Black to Love. That is going to be August 10th, 2019, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the downtown Decatur Library. That is 215 Sycamore Street, Decatur, Georgia. And if you know, downtown Decatur is like right across the street from the Decatur train station. Black to Love is talking about the promotion of love instead of insults. How do we approach each other? How do we love ourselves across the diaspora? How do we love ourselves as a Black individual? Because unless I respect and value myself as a Black person, I can't value you as a Black person. Love is revolutionary. And you can get tickets at www.africanunity.us. That's www.africanunity.us. And like I said, to anyone who wants to come to the event, who's listening to this broadcast, the promo code UNITY, before you check out, you will see an option to click promo code. The promo code is UNITY with a capital U. Your ticket will go down from $10 to $5. And I hope to see as many of you as possible. We're eventually going to turn this event into a weekly podcast where we can cover way more topics, and we can have a number of panelists to come on and share their perspectives, and we can really create this dialogue and make it move. Also, if you're in the Atlanta area, we are currently doing something called Clean the Block Party every third Saturday on Pryor Road, where we're not only just cleaning up the street, but we're throwing a block party for the community, for people to get to know each other. They can socially engage with one another, and we're bringing the neighbor back to the hood. And just look up our website to see all the different events and all the different work that we're doing here and abroad in the countries that we're working in. On the homepage, there's room for people to donate to make sure that we can continue to do the work that we're doing. And you can find the donation tab at www.africanunity.us/donate. So I look forward to your guys' support. I look for more engagement in conversations like these. I want to thank you, Brother Dynas, for opening up your platform to me. I appreciate it, and I hope that you can make it out to the event as well.
When is it again?
August 10th, next Saturday.
I'll be in Nigeria.
All right, you told me that. I forgot. Yeah,
Leave,
it's all good.
Yeah, I'll leave Tuesday. I'll leave Tuesday night. So yeah, I'll be back home.
Well, when people are going to Africa, I always say congratulations.
Thank you.
Because congratulations, brother.
So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you go to search for Uhuru on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. Like, share, and subscribe. If you're new to the platform, please subscribe, hit that bell notification, and all that good stuff. Until next time, family, Dynasty Mirror, search for Uhuru. Peace.
Peace.